Hey everybody, Drew Dinkmeyer here at DailyRoto, welcoming you to the 2018-2019 NBA season and giving you a tutorial of our new NBA Optimizer, which our tech team has worked so diligently on in the offseason. We're so excited to bring to you. If you're familiar with our NFL Optimizer, you'll see a lot of similarities between the NBA Optimizer. But we'll start with Fanduel. We'll look at both Fanduel and DraftKings. There's a little bit of differences between the two sites this year, and thus a little bit of a difference between the optimizers. But we'll start with Fanduel, and the first thing you'll notice when you get to the optimizer page is you'll be asked to select a slate up in the upper left. We'll start with Fanduel here with the main slate here. You'll see all the projections formatted for you. You see on the far right the projected fantasy points. You can see the value. We've attached a value threshold for each relative salary based on the site. So in this case, Russ Westbrook at 12.5 is a negative 6.1 value. What that's saying is just simply that 6.1 plus 51.4, our expectation for a player with a 12.5 salary would be about 57.5 points, and he's just coming shy of that. So the value is just simply a number positive or minus the difference in the expected points total based on the salary. You'll see a boost column, which is just if you want to move the projection up or down a percentage point or two. Every click is a percentage point. So if you want to go down 5% in Russ's projection or up 5%, you could simply do that. You can always toggle those off with the little arrows there. You'll see an exposure percentage where you can track what percent of a player you want to max have in your lineups. You'll see min, which is the minutes a player we're projecting for on a given night. So in this case, Russell Westbrook in the opener, we'll see if he's able to play. We're projecting for 36 minutes. We'll certainly change those and update everybody if Westbrook is unable to play. You'll see AR, which stands for assist rate, RR, which stands for rebound rate, and UR, which stands for usage rate. These are the components that go into our projections, and as a result, these are our baselines for them. So we're projecting Russell Westbrook with a 33+% usage rate, a 15+% rebound rate, and a 45+% assist rate. Usage rate simply means the percentage of possessions a player is taking up of their team. And so those are possessions that end in a field goal attempt, a free throw attempt, or a turnover. Rebound rate is the expectation, the percentage of rebounds available a player is able to grab, and assist rate is an expectation of the percentage of assists a team has on made field goals. So as a result, those all go into the projection. If you move them around, any of the columns here, you'll move the projection. The one that will most influence the projection is the minutes. Minutes in DFS have the biggest impact on projections overall. So you can see, Russ is a player that is a few fantasy points per minute in terms of his expectation, almost 2. So every click up or down here is about 1.4 fantasy points in expectation. If you want to change things, you can certainly edit that. You can always go back to our baselines by undoing those edits. You can save all of these edits with the little save disk up here. You have filterability based on all positions: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center. And the ability to filter by team as well. If you want to look at just Golden State's players, you can do so, and so on and so forth. The other thing that is interesting about our customizable projections this year that we haven't had in years past is we've tied in the ability to customize the team level projections. So, Golden State has an implied total of 118, but if you wanted to say, hey, I think Golden State's going to score 130 points in this game, you can bump them up to 130. And all of a sudden, the Golden State guys start rising in overall projection. You can see Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, they all kind of move up. You can do the same with projected assists and projected rebounds, and it'll move the individual players' projected assists and rebounds as well as you move the team up or down as a result. Now you can see the components of all these in our settings tab. Simply if you go down to stats and how you want to view it, you can view basic, which will just give you the projection and the projection and a DVP. We don't have any DVP loaded yet because the season hasn't started, and the salary. Or you can look at the outputs, and you can see with the outputs the actual projected stat categories. So with Russell Westbrook, we're currently projecting 24.8 points, 9.7 rebounds, 8.6 assists, 1.9 steals, 0.3 blocks, 4.4 turnovers. Now, if you move the OKC total up, you'll see Russ's points go up, right? So we're at 106, we go up to 112, and now we've got Russ at 26.2 points. So you can see all those abilities to edit and customize at your desire. You see these little save disks up at the top if you want to be able to save the team edits that you've made as well. Other things that we've got within this settings category is on both sites, you'll see exposures, the ability to control global exposures. I want no point guard to be owned in any of my lineups by more than, let's say, 40%. And you can click here and you'll see the point guards are filtering to 40% individually, all the players that are point guard eligible. You can do this by position. You can do this with all. As long as you save the settings up here, they will impact your runs as well. Uniques is simply the number of unique players per lineup that is created. So on Fanduel, you've got 9 roster spots. And what this is saying, we preload this to 2, and I'll explain why in a second. But what this is saying is if we create the first lineup and it has 9 players, the next lineup will have 2 players different than that previous lineup, and so on and so forth. So more uniques you use, the broader percentage of the player pool overall that you're going to use. The reason we have it set to 2 on Fanduel and 1 on DraftKings is because Fanduel has introduced the ability to drop your lowest score this year. So in reality, while you're creating lineups of 9 players, only 8 players are going to be used. So if we had this as 1 unique player, you would simply get the same lineup over and over with a punt player mixed in. And that's not necessarily what you want if you're building many, many lineups. It would just be mixing and matching that punt player. Now, that's if you used a 9th man, which is our FanDuel thing here, which this is the value attached to the 9th player. A 0 would equal a full punt, which means we are optimizing off of 8 players and just providing the salary of the last player in the spot that has the position that has the least value. Or you can go up to 1. So this is a bar that goes 0 to 1 in terms of how you can use it. And 1 would be I'm optimizing off 9 players in terms of my lineup. So anywhere in between is like kind of saying, hey, I want to count this 9th player's projection a little bit, but not a ton. If you have this at 0 and you had 1 unique, you would get as many lineups that are identical with as many players as your punts that have the same salary, because it would only be counting those first 8 players. So uniques we set to Fanduel to 2 automatically. You certainly have the ability to adjust it down to 1 should you like, but we recommend at least 2, especially if you're using this punt on the 9th man category. We also have Shuffle, which is a feature we introduced in the NFL Optimizer. And what this does is this gives you a wider spread of the player pool as well. The way it does that is it condenses the projections and regresses them a little bit. So what it does is if Russell Westbrook is in your first lineup, he's a little bit less likely to get into your second lineup. And we keep pushing those players that have been into a lineup before down in their projection a little bit more. This works similarly to uniques in the sense that it pushes you out deeper into your player pool overall. Shuffle's been a feature that's really useful for NFL. The one thing that I'd note is the more shuffle you use, the less you're relying on the projections because you're condensing those projections a little bit. So oftentimes in NFL season, I'll use a shuffle of like 20, 25, something like that. And then I'll just look and I'll see what it looks like. What the shuffle should do is it should allow and resolve some of the issues that optimizers have with clumping players together. Oftentimes, if you run an optimizer and you ask for 100 lineups and you have 2 really strong values, you'll get those first two values in all the lineups together as it's shuffling through all the other players. This shuffle feature will help declump those players from one another as they each get a little bit less likely to be in the next lineup together. So it's a feature that helps spread out your player pool a little bit. Uniques can also do it. The two work somewhat hand in hand. They can be used interchangeably as a result. Desired lines is just the number of lineups you'd like to create. Salary slider is just basically, what's the min salary you'd like for a roster, what's the max salary you'd like for a roster, so on and so forth. On FanDuel, that goes up to 60,000 as well. The other thing is we have this ability to submit all players. And what our optimizer does to speed up things a little bit and to run very quickly is it doesn't submit the entire player pool. It submits the top 10 overall scorers and top 10 values at each position. So on most slates, you're not going to need more than that. But on some slates, if you want to submit the entire player pool, you can check this box and it will submit the entire player pool to you. If you're using a really big shuffle, you might want to do this. That being said, this will slow your submission down as a result. It will make the optimizer run slower because it's having to calculate many, many more submissions. So the way we get around that is top 10 overall values, top 10 overall scorers at each position are submitted into the optimizer. So, we're talking about submitting somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 players into the optimizer. If you plan on using more than 100 on a slate, you'll want to check this. You probably won't most slates. In the view section, we have the ability to change where these games show up. You see them, for me, start in the top, but you can move them around. You can move them to the left. You can move them to the bottom. Whatever suits your desire. You can close them off altogether from the game menu. So whatever you'd like there. The outputs we talked about before. A new feature we have on the NBA Optimizer that we don't have on the NFL Optimizer just yet is the ability to optimize by range of outcome projections. So you'll see the percentile outcome here says STD, which stands for standard. And if you drop this down, you'll see the ability to optimize based on 10th percentile projections, 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th percentile, or 90th percentile projections this year. So the ability to optimize based on a percentile range of projections, maybe capturing more upside for GPP lineups as an example. If I toggle this to 75%, you'll see the projections have changed to all the players' individual 75th percentile projections. You'll see many more players are positive values now because we're talking about, instead of their mean projection, we're talking about their 75th percentile outcome. So you have the ability to choose what level you'd like to optimize on based on percentile outcome, which I think is really cool. Thanks to the tech team and Mike Leone for all his hard work in the range of outcomes. Lastly, we have the players per page, the number of players you just want to see on an individual page. I almost never toggle that. And then if you exclude a team, whether you want to show these players or not. That gets into this team limits area, where if you uncheck a team entirely and remove them, whether you want to show them or not. In team limits, you can choose mins or maxes for number of players you want. So if you say, I want at least one Boston Celtic player in all my lineups, you would go min 1 Boston. If you say, I want at most 1 Golden State player in all my lineups, you'd go max 1 Golden State. You can always save that up in the upper right there as well. Groups, the final thing, not always useful in NBA, a little bit more useful in NFL, but this is the ability to create groups in rules. So let's say you're on a slate where you don't want more than one of Russell Westbrook or Schroeder in any lineup because you think, hey, they can't both go off together. You add Russell Westbrook, you add Dennis Schroeder, you add them here, and you just say, at most one of those in my lineup. You save the group, you have the group up here as a result. And now you can do this with also key players as well. Let's say you think for whatever reason, if Steven Adams has a big game, it has to come at the result of Russell Westbrook. So you would say, okay, I want Steven Adams, and he's going to be my key player. Every lineup that I have Steven Adams in, I want to make sure that I have Russell Westbrook in. You could say, so this is going to, any lineup that Steven Adams gets into, Russell Westbrook would get into as well if you save that group. You could also do it the other way. You could say, hey, I don't think too many OKC, the big OKC guys are going to go off together. So I'm going to say, I want max 1 of Paul George or Russell Westbrook in a lineup. You can say, at most 1. Let's say you wanted exactly one of those 2 players in all your lineups. You can do that as well. So this is all the way to create rules and framework for your optimizer. And from there, you just run it. We'll run this one quickly. And you'll get to this processing page. You'll see the blue bar on Fanduel load up, and that'll show you the process on how it's going. You'll get your lineups here. And you can see on Fanduel, there's a player grayed out. Why is there a player grayed out? Well, Fanduel will be dropping your lowest score this year. So we have shown you who the player is that projects for the lowest score that is being dropped and the overall projection of the team. Then you can also see all your lineups as you scroll down and the players that are getting dropped. You can also see your player exposures up here. So on these lineups, we've got 65% Terry Rozier, 56% Steph Curry, only 9% Russell Westbrook. You can download your lineups, and from there, you can import them into your CSVs over on Fanduel. So these will match all the player IDs on Fanduel. You just basically copy and paste into the Fanduel's CSV. You can see here are all Fanduel's player IDs. You can just copy and paste these right in, and you've got your Fanduel lineups. If you want to restart this process, you just go back here and restart. You're back on Fanduel. Let's look at DraftKings really quickly. Most of the things are the same on DraftKings as they are on Fanduel. A couple differences on DraftKings versus Fanduel. Simply different value thresholds. We've got I believe it's 4x plus 8 on Fanduel, or on DraftKings, excuse me. So a 10K player, their value threshold would be around 48. Russ is 10-2, so a little bit higher than that in terms of the value play. You've also got multiple positional eligibility here that is factored in. So you'll see players impact sorting through on both sets. Like, Steph Curry will be under point guard. He'll also be under shooting guard here. And then you'll see no ninth man here. But you've got position and utility. You can choose what position you want in your utility spot here. So as a result, you can check guard or forward or center if you want anyone to get into that utility spot, or if you just say, hey, forward's really thin tonight, I don't want them in my utility spot, you simply uncheck the forward button there. If you have an emergency, as you can see, in case of emergency with the optimizer, something is not generating lineups for you, you want to get back to the start of everything, you can simply clear things here. You can clear player individual bumps, you can clear team bumps, you can clear all bumps, or you can clear all. And yeah, it'll ask you, do you really want to do this? So I cleared all my bumps there. I'm right back to DailyRoto's generic baseline projections here. None of my customizations have held over because I've reset everything. Up here, you'll see the timestamp, and this suggests our projections were last updated on October 11th at 5:51 in the afternoon. These will continue to update throughout the day as we get information. Of course, we'll have lineup alerts sent directly to your inbox with all the information on why we're changing projections as player news comes in. But that'll do it for this edition of the DailyRoto Optimizer tutorial for the 2018-2019 season. I hope this is helpful for all of you that are getting accustomed to using our optimizer and how to be able to create better, more efficient lineups for you and utilize our projections. That'll do it for myself, Drew Dinkmeyer, and DailyRoto.com. Best of luck in all your games this season.